Since acquiring Lucasfilm in 2012 from George Lucas, Disney has had many behind-the-scenes issues with the new wave of Star Wars films, with only one movie managing to avoid the drama. For many fans, Disney has dropped the ball when it comes to Star Wars features, but they have found much success in television with shows like The Mandalorian and Andor being fun and refreshing for audiences. There hasn't been a new film since Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker in 2019, but Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy announced 3 Star Wars movies in active development at Star Wars Celebration, spanning various eras of the timeline. Prior to the film reveals at Celebration, there were a number of Star Wars movies in development that were either cancelled or have been shelved more the moment, including Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron. While this news was upsetting for the future of the franchise, it does mean that Lucasfilm and Disney are working to chart a clear path for Star Wars moving forward, seeking a way to break the streak of story and production issues that have riddled the franchise for the last decade. There have already been 5 Star Wars films released under Disney, and while 4 were box office successes, only 1 didn't have behind-the-scenes drama, and it's the most surprising of the bunch. Rian Johnson's Star Wars: The Last Jedi was the 8th installment in the Skywalker saga, and despite fans' divisive feelings about the film, it was the only Disney Star Wars film not to endure major production issues. The first film released through Disney was Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which had major rewrites and a delayed release as a result of Kennedy dismissing screenwriter Michael Arndt. The first version of the story was drafted by George Lucas before he sold Lucasfilm, but his ideas were tossed in favor of a new writer's room. After Arndt was fired, Lawrence Kasdan was hired to collaborate with director J.J. Abrams for the final script. Plot points were still being developed and changed even after production had started. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, went through significant reshoots in the months before the release of the film, as evidenced by the lack of the footage in the final product appearing in the trailers. These reshoots focused on tightening up film's plot, improving the pace of the beginning, and completely reworking the structure of the third act. While these reshoots proved to be for the best, it demonstrated an issue with consistency and led many to grow concerned before the release of the film. Both Solo, a Star Wars story, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker had director changes, with the director change for Solo coming midway through shooting. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were fired from Solo for creative differences, and were ultimately replaced by Ron Howard. Solo was the first box office bomb for Star Wars, though a number of factors can be attributed to the financial failure. The same creative differences were the reason why Colin Trevorrow was removed from Star Wars, Episode 9, and he was quickly replaced by J.J. Abrams, who had just 18 months to deliver the controversial The Rise of Skywalker. Luke Skywalker in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Despite Johnson's film splitting the fandom in half for its treatment of Luke Skywalker and how it followed through on ideas set up in The Force Awakens, it is extremely cohesive from start to finish. Regardless of one's opinion of the film, it was clear that The Last Jedi had one clear vision behind the camera, making it feel like a complete story in its own right. Johnson's decisions in The Last Jedi were consistent with the story he was telling, whether or not they fit into the larger Star Wars lore. None of the other Star Wars films to come in the Disney era have felt quite so cohesive. While Rogue One mostly escapes this criticism, it's known that veteran filmmaker Tony Gilroy was called in as reinforcement and has a major hand in making the movie what it ultimately is. However, a film like Solo is hampered by noticeably having multiple cooks in the kitchen, a result of multiple directors tackling the picture from different genres. While The Last Jedi wasn't a perfect movie, it didn't suffer from these issues, shining a light specifically on the story and characters, as opposed to production value.